beginning. My name is Reverend Father Ambrose Okuchukwu Ofodele. I am Priest Director, Radio Maria, Nigeria, Enugu. It's a radio station that we are starting in Enugu Diocese. By December, it will be inaugurated. And I am also the chaplain of Holy Rosary College, HRC, Enugu. And we are championing a program in Enugu Diocese, Christian Faith and Neo-paganism. Obonine Gentina, Urban Radio 94.5 FM every Monday by 4:20 to 5:20. Anyine Kumaka, Christian Faith and Neo-paganism. And that's why I find it very interesting that I was invited to talk about Neo-paganism, to talk about inculturation, and to also talk about the youth. The link, the interconnections, they are very clear. When you talk about the youth, all of us, the age range that we have as young people, and then we talk about neo-paganism, and we talk about inculturation. Let us start with the youth. I am one of those who do not agree that we should peg a particular age range to being a youth. Youthfulness is associated with agility. Youthfulness is associated with power, with strength, not with age. Because you could even see someone who is 60 and he still has the mindset of young people. That such a person for me is a youth. So because sometimes when we attach age range to the description of youth, we exclude some people who are supposed to be great participants in that particular youthful age. So for me, the Igbo explanation or description of youth bụ ụmụ ntorobịa. In other words, ụmụ okorobịa na ụmụ agbọghọbịa. These are also designations that we give to the word youth. And also it is also a time of resourcefulness for me. It's a time of resourcefulness. It's also a time of adventure. To be a youth is to be adventurous. Onye bụ youth bụ onye the curious. It is also a time of curiosity. It's also a time of knowledge, your desire to be taught. So for me, that's why I said I don't want to associate the word youth with any age range, because we may tend to exclude some people from that by giving it that age range. But it's very important that we understand that today's youth, our former president, late Muhammad Buhari, said young people are lazy. And I do not know how true that assertion is. It can only be true when we look at ourselves and ask ourselves, are we actually lazy? And what determines your laziness is what you are doing and what you are seeing at every point in time. So for me, I don't think that the youths that we are lazy. It's a matter of lack of opportunity. Just like when you talk about unemployment everywhere, and the question of, do we have unemployable youths? Employable youths, people who can be employed, or do we have people who are not eager to engage themselves in something meaningful? So as we have gathered here, we classify ourselves as youth. What is our identity as young people? And so that's why I gave some qualities. You can talk about curiosity, you can talk about knowledge based, you can talk about also the eagerness to question everything. It's an age, a time where you question every constituted authority. Every institution is having a question mark from young people today. From education to health, from health to politics to religion. We want to question, why is it like this? And the beginning of development of any youth or any society is when you begin to talk about curiosity, how ready we are to question things around us. If you are a teacher, you will know that when you go to the class, in a kuzi and they don't ask you questions, it means so we acknowledge that this is an age where people are bold enough to ask questions. And so when they ask questions, those questions must be answered. They should not be relegated to the background. Those questions are very important in order to fashion ways of following our young people. So we have tried to x-ray what it means to be a youth. So you can also, there are people who say, to be a youth, it is in the heart. Because youthfulness is in the heart. How you think, how you relate with people. It's also something. Now, let us talk about Ndi Igbo. The Igbo people. Some time ago, I think around May this year, or is it April, 3 young men were arrested by Anambra State government. You know them. Akwokoko Tiwaraki and what's Eke Heat? What is the other one? Onyeze Jesus. Why were they arrested? Because they were carrying out something you could say a revival of the identity of the Igbo people. And that is the beginning of Neo-paganism when we begin to talk about that. Let us even start by trying to x-ray this notion of Neo-paganism. Let me start by saying that to say that we have Neo-paganism is already a denigration, because paganism has roots in Roman culture. To start with, those who live in the rural areas were described as pagans. With time, those who refused to accept Christian religion became designated as pagans. Until later on, the word pagan became associated with any religion that professes polytheism. Any religion that is not within the mainframe of the recognized religions. So in the first place, paganism was not ab initio a derogative term. It gained currency. It gains this derogation with time. But then, when we talk about its usage in Africa, we talk about that pagans are those who are worshiping idols, those who are into polytheism. But let us also x-ray the traditional nature of African traditional religion in Igbo land. Let us start by saying that the Igbo people, Ndi Igbo, as we want to discuss, they are essentially religious people. Ndi Igbo bụ ndị maara Chukwu. And I dare to say that the Igbo people even knew the existence of God before the coming of Christian religion. Ndị Igbo maara onye Chukwu bụ. And that's why in many Igbo names you find the appellation Chukwuka, Chukwuode, Chinenye, Chukwunenye. These are understandings that there is a supreme deity that is greater than every other deity. However, the Igbo people also believe that you cannot approach this Chukwu directly. That this Chukwu has intermediaries. Those who are go-between, between the people and the supreme God. Onyamelo, you now find the Igbos going to deities that will help them to reach Chukwu. In other words, the Igbo people know or have the notion of a supreme God even before the coming of Christianity. And that is essentially the religion of Igbo people. The religion of African traditional religion becomes then the religion of Igbo people. And that in that ATR, the Igbo people have Nso, what we call Nso, Omenana. They have Omenana. They have things that they avoid. For instance, the priest of African traditional religion, onye bụ ezigbo dibia African traditional religion, na-enwe nsọ. Ọ bụrụ na ọ chọọ ije n'ukwu arụsị ya, enwere ihe ọ na-ada eme. For instance, a priest of African traditional religion does not live a luxurious life. Ọ ga-enyelụ ndị mmadụ aka iweta ego, but ọ ma nwe ego. He lives an austere type of life. Onye bụ dibia na-agba mbọ na-ezelụ okwu asị. When you talk about the true picture of the priest of African traditional religion, ha na-asọ nsọ ọbara, ha adịghị egbu mmadụ, ha adịghị ekwe ka emejọ mmadụ. That's why when you come to them, they ask you na aka ga-adịkwa ọcha. So the Igbo people actually understand what it means to have these things stipulated. So when we say that our people are going back to African traditional religion, we ask ourselves, what type of religion are they going back to? Kedu ihe eji wee mara ndị Igbo at the beginning of time? Eji hard work wee mara ha. The Igbo people are industrious, very hardworking type of people, very resourceful. And when you meet them in the farms, they are very strong. You look at Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, you find the protagonist Okonkwo, who was always ready to work. In fact, he detested anything that was associated with his father, Unoka. So Okonkwo went into farming, very strong. He detested anything that was associated with his father because his father was a lazy man. That was the character of a proper Igbo man, which should resonate in our lives as young people today. Hard work. A proper Igbo person is not lazy. We are so industrious that we do not look for easy means of making money. That's why in the olden days, you cannot just make cheap money.